sales tax and a little bit of income tax. Now, I'm getting into the real meat and potatoes of my essay series. I've explained a little bit about how interest rates soak up loose funds. I've also explained how taxes do the same. I haven't, however, explained too much about sales tax. How is the money that goes toward road maintenance allocated? I didn't even bother asking Whisper or TikTok this one. Or at least not in the last year. I can assume, however, the following: no one will answer, because no one really cares. It's not a topic people think about. They assume everyone's taxes are paying for everything evenly. That's just not true. The vast majority of people also believe that the reason they pay taxes, especially sales tax, is because if they didn't, the government would collapse, or the park drinking fountains would stop working. As I said previously, the government doesn't need your money, you need the money the government supplies. I'll say it again, the government supplies the money. Take a break before reading or listening to the rest of this. Once you worked it out and see that it's obvious, you can start the rest of your life. Now, road maintenance funding comes from people who pump gas. The reason is simple: people who pump gas are most likely using the road. The more you pump gas, the more you use the road. So, the more you use the road, the more your individual tax dollars go toward paying for the road maintenance. Sounds simple, sounds easy. It even sounds socially just. I can't believe I used socially just in a sentence without implying I might barf soon. However, I did it. Let's just move on. In the earlier chapter, The Case for 1% Income Tax, I had the road tax in mind. If I were in power, instead of collecting taxes from people's pay, I would have it come from the products or service the public pay for. To me, it's more liberating for people when they pay taxes on things they choose to use, as opposed to feeling they may be paying taxes towards something fundamentally against their morals. In my view, that could lead to a slightly less divisive populace. Again, this proposition wouldn't lead to funding loss in needed services. Moreover, I realize not all sales tax connects logically to all services, such as community centers or homeless shelters. Although I would assume property taxes would cover community centers. Homeless shelters in my proposed plan would be funded directly from the government or another way taxes are used. So far, I've talked about how taxes are a form of income for provincial and municipal governments, and how I plan to cut income taxes. Now, I want to talk about another thing taxes are used for. I want to get something a little clear for you first. When I refer to taxes, I don't mean taxes throughout the ages. Money has changed form over the years. When I say years, I mean millennia. Also, the systems that control the flow of money have changed. Taxes now control the flow of money. They used to prop up governments when money was actually physical metals or seashells. Now money is paper or a mixture of impossible to fold plastics. The value of money now is based on how much you trust your government to be there next year. When I say taxes, I mean the tax system that is put in place now. Alright, taxes are used to modify the population's behavior. The reason cigarettes are so expensive, in Canada at least, is because there's a high tax on them, before you pay sales tax. The reason for that isn't because the government wants to make the poor old cigarette fiend poorer. It's because they want to make it harder for an addicted cigarette user to purchase cigarettes. If it's more expensive, they'll buy less by default. This is probably the primary reason for taxes in our contemporary world. Anytime you encounter a high tax barrier for a product or service, it's probably because the government wants to promote the declining use of a product or service. In contrast, when taxes are low, that means the government is actively promoting the use of a product or service attached to that tax. This goes back to supply and demand. If the barrier is too high, demand falters, and vice versa. Anyhow, back to what I was saying in regards to taxes not directly connected to services. I'm not saying this is exactly what I would have done, but perhaps the tax revenue made from cigarette sales could go toward homeless shelters. Something like that example is how I would divert funds that used to come from income taxes to public services. There would have to be a giant study on the matter to see what fits. Perhaps in a later book I'll have that laid out. One last thing before I finish with this segment. The reason I wouldn't drop the income tax of the rich to 1%, at least not at first, is for the same reason their tax rate is currently 40% or more. The government doesn't hate rich people because they think rich people would be delicious if they were eaten or something. It's because they're trying to modify their behavior. The government, by taxing the rich 40% or more, are encouraging the rich to put their money in loophole accounts. If the rich keep their money invested and saved, that helps the general population with loans. The national interest rate would be reasonable. The rich are already spreading the wealth. Those who keep propagating this misconception that the rich are money-grubbing masses of dirty, disgusting people, are most likely themselves what they are accusing others of being. Also, I would bet the farm that they are being paid richly to keep up this toxic rhetoric. Or, they are immensely, and utterly, profoundly, stupid. They should have no place in governing others. My ears are ringing with the sound of someone saying, "What about capital flight? The rich hide their money in offshore accounts." I'll explain this in more detail in the segment following this one. For now, I'll leave you with this. Money cannot end up anywhere, other than where it came from, and capital flight isn't money, it's people.